it is persons with disability that are suffering corruption most in Nigeria.
You see, the youth are troubled because you have parents that are going to work and coming back and bringing up money that children know that they don't earn.
I think I must be sincere with you. Our interests are not protected.
Everybody knows the government is corrupt. And you, Unko, how do you describe what you're doing? It's not the same corruption. See, corruption is corruption, no? Stop it.
We have really suffered the menace of corruption in Nigeria because it is through the act of corruption that disability even began.
People that have no business with farming, people that are not even farmers, hijack the process.
This is one of those countries where corrupt leaders are celebrated in our communities, in our society.
So you trouble the mind of that young man or that young woman, and they know what it is. You are dirtying the society.
SCRAP-C is an acronym of an anti-corruption project. It stands for Strengthening Citizens' Resistance Against Prevalence of Corruption. That is currently managed with other consortium by ActionAid.
So when this opportunity actually came up, I was really, really pleased. I mean, it was as if something we had been waiting for. But again, I knew that we were taking on a challenge that first probably has not been done before at this level and at this scale, and most importantly had not been addressed from the angle of behavior change. So we knew we had our work cut out for us.
Before the SCRAP-C project, you know, the landscape has been difficult because EFCC connected and said they had about 400 cases against people on corruption, but only 100 had been heard in the court.
So that narrative, that behavior, that attitude towards fighting corruption is what this project, the SCRAP-C project, is trying to change.
The whole concept about the project is to see how citizens could be empowered and also stop accepting certain ways of doing things which are antithetical to the fight against corruption, because the project was conceptualized to see what are the existing practices in the country and by its citizens that is not making the fight against corruption to work positively.
So, are you corrupt?
Well, that's a very big question to answer.
It depends on the definition of your corruption though, but I think everybody is corrupt when you're trying to be dishonest in some ways and fraudulent in some ways still, but I can't say I'm corrupt fully.
I cannot say that I'm not corrupt because I'm not a righteous man.
I won't say I'm corrupt, but there is actually no human being on earth that would say he or she is not corrupt. I mean, at some point we have either 1 or 2% of corruption imbibed in all of us. So it depends on whether you decide to show that corruption or eliminate that corruption.
But I think we are all corrupt.
So, are you corrupt?
Kind of.
When we say citizens, who are the citizens? Everybody is a citizen. Though we have the leaders and the led, we have the government. You know, you have your budget. Government is an instrument of administration, but governance is the process of administration. So how you use the tool that you have been given with authority on how you bring changes to the people is another.
Corruption has eaten deep into the fabric of the society. People now see it as one of those things that that is a norm in the society. So when we took the campaign of changing mindset, changing attitude and behavior, some of the questions that we encountered were, are you sure this country is going to change?
Looking at the ACOM project itself by DFID that came on board, we have a lot of civil society organizations, you know, like Center for Democracy and Development. We also have the Center for Communication and Social Impact, which is CCSI, coming on board as the core partners that we had, and them managing a large pool of other civil society organizations, collectively bringing their own expertise on communication and others on social mobilization, uniting with ActionAid, you know, across board, asking citizens to stand upright for Nigeria. I think that became a multitude for me. I was so excited.
Formative research is usually the first step in designing any coherent communication campaign strategy because it allows you to identify the issues. And the idea behind the research was to come up with the social norms that are actually affecting corruption and the way Nigerians think about corruption in Nigeria. And the formative research was done in 3 of the project states, and the main results showed that there were several drivers of corruption in Nigeria, and the main results could be leveraged primarily around the 3 Gs, which were godfatherism, greed, and gratification.
Okay, so how may I help you, please? I don't need gratification to carry out my duty.
These are fundamental factors that are actually restraining citizens to take a proactive actions in the fight against corruption. We read somebody embezzled $50 billion or thereabouts on the pages of this paper, but people are very view it in a more simplistic way, not looking at what could be the socioeconomic impact of such, corrupt practices on their growth and development. So the project mainly then look at how can we change that kind of behavior on the part of the citizens for it to contribute positively in the fight against corruption.
So you're having a lot of cases in the court. There were so many governors that were accused of looting. Many of them were taking cases proven but not in the court.
We say no to corruption. Yeah. Corruption is evil. Corruption is evil.
When we started with just few partners who were concentrated only in Lagos and in Abuja. And there was need to have citizens engagement in all the 6 geopolitical zones where we were working. So the way we could overcome that was to get other core civil society organizations that are into anti-corruption work in some of these states. So we were able to have more citizens participation because there were more citizens engagement at the grassroots level.
We got massive response. When the program started gaining that popularity, we discovered that some people are now using it to threaten whoever is having a problem with them, or probably they've been cheated.
I didn't know about Upright for Nigeria. I just became aware of their work via listening to their radio campaign. I got to know that as a citizen I have a role to play. I have to contribute my own quota to the task of collective national development and nipping corruption in the bud. I may have known about this on the periphery, but the work of Upright for Nigeria got me to know deeper that there is no need to be afraid, because in Nigeria we know where you ask questions you are termed an opposition to government, and so Upright for Nigeria educated me that you don't need to be afraid, you need to ask questions.
That program had solved so many cases without even coming to this commission. So I believe it's and more importantly the government agency, because as it stands today, I can beat my chest and tell you that we have an institution that is second to anti-corruption institution in all over the world, not only in Nigeria, because what we are doing today, nobody is exempted.
If you are working with certain people, it may not go the way you are looking at it. But I think coming on board of the ICPC is also a landscape.
The Scrapsy project itself had as its main thrust looking at changing the public mindset around corruption, and for that it was really heavily leveraged on behavior change. So CCSI supported the partnership to develop an articulate communication strategy, taking into cognizance the formative research that was conducted initially.
If you look at our approach, we have the top-down, we have the social accountability intervention, of course, the behavioral intervention. A mix of these 3 approaches actually gave us the kind of results that we have today.
In rolling out the communication strategy, we first developed the theme and the name, the brand of the campaign, and working together with partners at a meeting that we put together in Uyo, we came up with the flagship Upright for Nigeria. Upright for Nigeria because even during the development of the strategy, we agreed that corruption itself is such a complex issue, and rather than have messages that go about saying corruption is not good, we decided to look at the positive values that we could promote. So we focused on honesty, integrity, and transparency. And to push those messages around the HIT campaign, we agreed that it's better to develop generic icons rather than pick out Nigerians that we felt at that time could serve as anti-corruption ambassadors. Again, because corruption is such a complex landscape and there are different dimensions of corruption, we didn't want to stand the risk of identifying a particular brand ambassador as an anti-corruption ambassador, and then a few weeks down the line, there's something negative around that person that then negatively affects the campaign. So we then decided to create Mr. and Mrs. Upright, and we used them as cartoon figures during our animations and even in the materials around the anti-corruption messages, and these were the icons for the campaign.
There are a lot of innovation that came into the project that makes it quite novel. A departure, not complete departure, but a departure from the conventional way of addressing corruption in the country before now.
Before, you couldn't ask. Politicians will take the money and they go away, and you're not hearing anything and you dare not question. And so with our project, with many other civil society coming on board, we've been able to raise questions, follow your money.
We have what is called budget tracking group in Kano State, which is not, it looks abnormal, right? Let me give you one scenario. I was coming from Kaduna some time back. I met with this young guy. I was trying to put him through on what corruption is all about. I told him, see, in Kano, we are now tracking budget. If the government just announces, even before the announcement of the budget, PWDs are involved. In fact, it is inclusive. The traditional rulers are involved, women group are involved, the faith-based organizations. They will call us. They will say, this is what you have, this is what we are going to do. Then, after that, we now track. What are they doing in this facility? What are they doing in that NDA? The contractors, how much are they giving? Are they working? This boy was just looking at me. He said, no idea. This is not possible. I told him this is what we are doing currently in Kano State. And that was because of Scrap C that came to us.
The whole idea of the Scrap C project is to ensure that we create an environment for business that is devoid of corruption. Because we believe that corruption is one of the biggest challenges that we face in the economy in terms of the impact on transaction costs, in terms of the impact of even attracting investments into this economy. And the engagement we have had with CBI, there have been some steps taken in terms of reforming the regulatory processes, and the regulatory institutions have been put on their toes. So they are now much more conscious about the processes, about procedures that sometimes leads to corruption.
The convention has, over the years, been able to establish that conversation, that level of discipline, integrity in business, and they've been able to showcase the ability to say that, look, in Nigeria, we have something that can help to direct the narrative, not just narrative, but to live the life of integrity and doing business in line with the best corporate governance tenets globally.
The media is not called the first estate of the realm for nothing. If you have a project and you need to get the buy-in of the citizens, even all the way down to the local community, you need to get the media on board. Of course, media has been reporting, corruption, from time immemorial. In fact, it is one of the core responsibilities of the media. to take, government and other entities into account. So the first thing we did, in conjunction with other members like the BBC Media Action and the Action Aid Nigeria, was to train journalists. We had series of trainings in all the project states.
Upright for Nigeria, stand against corruption.
And after the training, we had what we called media endowment. Now, the media endowment is to help journalists, take care of logistics, take care of transportation, to do stories all over our project states.
They see things from the lens of community members. They understand the best way to engage them, and capacitating them will go a long way in engaging citizens on issues that are relevant to them, on issues that they could proactively respond to and be part of in making certain demands on the government.
For us to be able to do that, especially for the magazine program, we actually developed a 13-episode radio design document that looks at the different topics per episode, what we want to achieve and who the audiences will be. And that was rolled out across all the project states.
The only Ogbonge Senator of the Federal Republic, the People's Senator, at last, he don't reach us. Congratulations. This now our time.
Thank you, my brother. You see, now our victory.
We don't hammer. Our suffering don't end.
One lesson we've learned is it takes time to change the narrative, because that's essentially what we were tasked to do as a consortium. It does take time to change the narrative of corruption in a country, especially because there are different elements. So there's the society element, which is the one that we address. There's also the systems element, and there's also the sanctions element. All these three pieces and more must work together for us to be able to achieve results in a deliberate manner.
I think I will look at the technical component as being with the reality on ground, and that is the question of the humans, the quality of citizenship.
It's looking at social norms these times, looking at how citizens can also play their own roles in terms of their behavioral change in addressing corruption.
Is how the partnership was actually able to use different evidence from research and to articulate the different audiences and make sure that each audience has a material that speaks to or resonates with them. So for example, for the religious leaders, we were able to develop religious perspectives using Islam and Christianity and how those tenets actually support anti-corruption. And also for the media, we developed a media advisory kit that helps them to better understand the project and most importantly, where they fit in, the kind of roles they can play.
The idea is that information is not enough. And how can we then physically engage citizens and to engage them around the need for them to start taking specific actions?
When you look at the Perception Corruption Index, the reasons why some people are scoring high is they open up their home and say, come and see us as we are. If you don't allow yourselves to be accessed or assessed, then you don't get the reportage the way it should be. And the readiness to also change is another. But it's a huge project that is mobilizing, for change in terms of people standing up for Nigeria. In a situation where we have Nigeria being declared as the poverty capital of the world, and we have our National Assembly members being the highest paid, it's such an irony. And then you're having them in a scam for, contracts and scam.
Corruption is a very serious issue right now in Nigeria. There is no one sector you talk about that has no link with corruption. The reason why that sector has not thrived.
We had that going on in the National Assembly where somebody said, don't talk again. You're having ministers accusing. But that it shows that we have come off stage, because before you wouldn't hear that. Hear a minister declaring that. The minister says, but social media has come of age. The technology has also, social media was a major impact assessment, major one that brought on board from all the technical partners, bringing in their expertise to make sure that we were, the Nigerian public was well informed on the issues of corruption. Corruption is not hiding again, but the willingness to bring sanctions is still a far cry.
So if you must invest in anti-corruption fight, it must be a long-term investment, and your return and your outcome must also be a long-term outcome or result. It's not something that you put in 5 years and you expect the result to start coming. Like some of the things we have done, and we started them in 2017, and we are just getting the result now in the third to move into the fourth year. So imagine if we continue what we'll see in the next 5-6 years. So I think to sustain this effort and get the kind of result that I expected, it must be a long term.
In the course of this project's implementation, we've seen an important milestone being recorded. We've seen citizens, community members showing interest to be part of this intervention. And that interest and taking specific actions, like organizing advocacy with local authority for them to ask questions about how the money is being used. That's a very good milestone.
I remember one of the meetings, of the town hall meetings we had. The traditional rulers were there, and the citizens got up and said, "We heard the governor gave you so amount of money. What did you use it for?" And so we are asking and developing. That was what the program was centered on, to look at citizens, for them to question themselves, to look at the quality of who we are, and to also come on board and say, "Hey, I'm not doing the right thing. Can I do the right thing?" You need to change your attitude. Attitudinal changes, and then demanding, for accountability from others. But with the question of accountability, if you want to point fingers, you also need to look at, if I want to point finger at you, the rest is coming back to me. That happened during this project.
Well, how do we feel a few years down the line? I mean, it's such a success story. We started well, we used a lot of science, we used a lot of our knowledge of theories and frameworks of all the different models that help the audience to actually begin to change the way they think around corruption. And we can see some of the results ourselves. We are not there yet. It does take a long time. I would actually modestly say that for any organization to see the difference in a country like Nigeria, for the work in anti-corruption will take at least 15 to 20 years. So we've worked only for a few, and in those few years we've been able to onboard a lot of partners who are also beginning to see how important a role they can play in that space of trying to change the way people think around corruption. We've also been able to increase the national discourse on anti-corruption in country, at national level, at state levels. We've changed the way entertainment education can actually play a key role in helping people to change the way they think. We've also used state-of-the-art technology, like the animation, and getting other partners to also bring that on board in the work they do. We've done a lot.
For instance, the media, we also did a lot with the media. The kind of report that the media actually churn out in terms of abandoned projects, and as a result of that, contractors went back to site and all that, for me, is a huge success for the project. Then two, the level at which people begin to use the FOI at some point is also a huge success for us in this project. Then if you go to the communities, that community women and men are beginning to report corruption directly. They were using radio stations as platform to report issues of corruption in the country. For me, these are the successes I think were not there before, that as a project we have achieved. And if time permits, if we build on all this, I think we are heading for a better country.
You can see even within COVID-19 that our monitoring with ICPC has shown that so many things are up. Within this project too, we work with UNODC, and that has also shown certain things. The Auditor General's report is now coming out and being published, where so many government parastatals are not even accountable. They are not showing anything. They are not showing audited accounts, and they are still being given money. That shows the colossal, at least there is openness about it.
A lot of work has been done, and we've actually had some achievements which we can take forward at different levels of scale. At the level of the community, looking at the informal networks, continue to support and push the Upright for Nigeria thrust online, offline, through the community engagement, and also to continue to push the values of honesty, integrity, and transparency in any area where all the partners are working. And one thing that we really love about working in this space is you don't have to be working on an anti-corruption project to share the same messages, because corruption affects the way we live. Corruption affects the quality of life we have as Nigerians, so we can find opportunities to integrate these messages even while working as NGOs or CSOs in different areas of work. One of the key ways in which all our efforts can still be sustainable is currently the trend that we've noticed now, because a lot of partners actually using the same campaign materials that we've developed for the Scrapsy project, using them with their constituencies at formal and informal level, driving home the positive values of honesty, integrity, and transparency. And we know that for any legacy, for any project to thrive, ownership is key. And this we see as sowing good seeds in the right soil, making sure that people are taking on board these materials and using them as if they were theirs.
But we are not giving up. Even when as the program is closing, we are not giving up, because there is a lot that we need to do. We hope that we can continue to work with the ICPC, and we have a human. One of the contents too is that I'm a Nigerian, I'm a patriotic Nigerian, and I want the best for this country, and I have a stake in this country. And so we need to get people to the move, because if you look at our national anthem, you say, "Arise, O compatriot." What we are doing, we are rising, and we say, "I am patriotic." You should not, if you are a thief, you are not a patriotic Nigerian. If you are a looter, you are not a patriotic Nigerian. Because for me, my country is number one before I look at any other thing. And so I worry about the quality of citizens. So this program has helped in mobilizing citizens to stand up right for Nigeria. I wish we could do more. I hope that we have more projects in that, but the commitment is great, and we are very, very grateful to FCDO for all the work in the past, the team of experts that we have had working with us.
The Center for Communication and Social Impact has actually enjoyed the partnership with ActionAid Nigeria as prime. We also work closely with Center for Development and Democracy, CDD. And between the three organizations, CDD, CCSI, and ActionAid Nigeria, we worked very closely. We had responsive management, we had a listening ear. And I think I'm really proud of the flexibility, especially on the part of ActionAid Nigeria, and the ability to trust CCSI to lead them through the path of deploying their expertise and skills in behavior change to attempt to achieve the little. Well, I'm being very modest, we actually did achieve the achievements that we were able to over the years. All this would not have been possible without the funding from DFID, and for that we really appreciate all the efforts and the guidance that we got throughout the years while implementing this project.